This is George Dionne of the Rock is George podcast, and this is a KNAC.com exclusive interview with vocalist Tobias Gusstafsson of the Swedish hard rock act NESTOR. If I knew absolutely nothing about NESTOR, how would you describe the band's music to me?
Well, if you asked me like 1 month ago, I would probably say that we play some kind of melodic rock, based in the 80s or where, with a lot of 80s vibe. But if you ask me today, I would probably say we try to make music for people who likes music. So we started off with a lot of 80s references, which we still have. But nowadays it's like we get so many fans and listeners that doesn't really, that's I shouldn't say that doesn't share our references, but they are more like, yeah, I never heard about these guys because I'm only 18 years old, so I just like your music. So I don't know if I answered your question, but music for people who kind of likes music. That's how I describe it nowadays.
Well, I feel like a lot of the Swedish acts are being marketed to the U.S. as sort of this 80s throwback thing in the last 10 years or so. And sometimes it applies, but other times I think it's just good old-fashioned rock and roll.
Yeah. You're right. You're right. Spot on, I guess.
You guys have a new album out. It's called Teenage Rebel. It came out on May 31st through Napalm Records. Do you guys write collectively, or are you just the lyricist guy and then everybody comes up with the music? How does it work for you guys?
Well, no, I'm kind of in charge of that department. I've always worked as a songwriter and a producer, which is differs a bit from the other guys who have normal jobs, but I only done this. So I do the main part of the writing as well as the lyrics, and I'm producing the album as well. So, but of course, for example, the guitar player, Johnny, he's a big part of it as well, doing the main, the riffs and stuff, and then I take it from there. So it's more like the rest of the guys in the band are more like, I got a demo, do you like it? Listen to it for a while and live with it, and then we record it with their kind of touch to it.
You guys got a couple of we'll call them singles. They're not really singles these days, they're more like promotional songs. Let's talk a little bit about them. Why don't you tell me a little bit about the inspiration behind the lyrics for Victorious?
Well, Victorious was, we this is the second album that released, and the first one was called Kids in a Ghost Town, and there's some kind of small town mentality thing going on in Sweden. I guess that goes for any small town anywhere in the world. And we just wanted to write a song about the fact that it's not up to anyone else to decide if you're victorious or not. It's like a feeling within. So Victorious is about, if you feel victorious, if you feel that you accomplished something, don't let anyone else tell you that you didn't or that you did. It's up to you. So this song is about that. We feel, NESTOR, we're almost 50 years old and we're touring the world. We are kind of victorious nowadays, and it's a great, sports anthem as well. It works fine with, as in the video, with a hockey game or football game or whatever. So it's about feeling victorious, and you're the one who decides if you are.
Another song that you have out, which I really like from the album, Caroline, kind of one of those summer songs, or at least in my mind, takes me back to when I was younger, cruise around in the car, young love in the summertime. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that one?
Well, you nailed it. That's what it's about. It's like this kind of summer, first love, summer feeling, you meet this girl and you do all that stuff, and all of a sudden you realize that maybe this is not meant to be forever, but still you're kind of hoping that maybe the love and the summer and whatever doesn't end, but you kind of know that it's gonna end. This is not how it's gonna be, but just to hang on to that feeling, and that song is really about that, last kind of days of summer and last kind of days of being unresponsible, so to speak, before you kind of before you're an adult, and there are a lot of demands. This is just before that kind of.
Are you planning a third single, or did you release a third single recently?
Yeah, we did release Teenage Rebel, the title track, but just 2 days before the album was released, we released that one as well, which is about our hometown, coming back to this little town where two of us still lives here, but the rest of us hasn't. We haven't been lived here for a long time. And coming back here, passing the old high school again, lost in time, kind of. I remember how it was, and you kind of, for a second, lose track of time, and all of a sudden you're 16 years old again, and that kind of stuff. So yeah, so that was the last single, actually.
So a little bit throwback to the first song, Victorious, your last album, Kids in a Ghost Town. You produced and put that album together yourselves. You were nominated for a Swedish hard rock metal Grammys. I mean, that must have blew your mind.
Yeah, it was amazing. But I guess when you've been in this business for a long time, as I've been, I was quite sure about, or let me put it this way, we wanted to control everything ourselves. It's great to have a label if they're good. There are quite a few of them that isn't. So we decided that we're going to release this on our own, and then we can control everything. We can say like, yeah, we want to do that show, we don't want to do that show, and we want to do this and that. But that is a kind of, what do you call it? Utopia? What's the English word for it? When it doesn't work that way. It's like when you get a fan base, they say like, yeah, I would love to get your album, but getting it from your website, it's going to cost me a fortune if I want to have it in Brazil. So then all of a sudden we probably would need a distributor or a label. And so, yeah, it was, to answer your question, it was great that we were nominated and everything with an independent release. But now we're working with Napalm because we couldn't really handle everything on our own.
It's tough. Sometimes you want to be in charge of everything, and then you realize that the system itself is built a certain way, and you kind of need people that are already in on the system.
Exactly. Now that's what we experienced, but in a good way. We were kind of, naive in that sense that we thought that we can control everything, and now we have. We had a production label, we have a publisher, we have a record label, of course, and a management. But it seemed we try to keep it tight, that we really try to be exclusive in a way and really thinking about what shows to do and what not. So, which I think is important. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about your relationship with Napalm Records. They released Teenage Rebel, but they also re-released Kids in a Ghost Town. So did you approach Napalm, or did they come to you?
They came to us. We had what do you say, like we were in that luxurious way, we had the opportunity to actually choose label, and we spoke to quite a few of them before we decided to go with Napalm. I knew Thomas Kaiser, who's the CEO, since quite way back. So when he called me up and said like, yeah, you can keep your all creative freedom, you can do whatever you like. Here's a bag of money. Just make sure that you do whatever we agree on. And so they approached us, but they felt right from the start.
See, now I would have thought for sure, and listening to your music for sure, that you would have been on that Italian record label.
They reached out. I can tell you that. I think I got 100 mails from them with different kind of offers, with different kind of, yeah, okay, I get it. But if we do it this way then, or if you want to be a producer for this Italian label, or maybe you want to do, I think they are great, but that's not a label for Nestor.
Now, going back to, Caroline and reminding me of when I was a childhood, I want to go back to Kids in a Ghost Town and your song Tomorrow and the video for Tomorrow, going back to my childhood and somebody I had hanging up on my wall. In the music video, Samantha Fox appeared, and I wanted to know how you got Samantha Fox in the video for Tomorrow.
Well, long story short, I had this idea when I wrote the song that it was meant to be a duet. And then I said to the guys that, think out of the box. Who would you like to have? I had to add by the end of the pandemic thing. So it was a bit tricky because one of the first options, or one of the first, what we came up with was Lita Ford, the old singer from the US. And I was like, yeah, that would be great. But then kind of hard to bring someone from across the sea to in pandemic times. And then I was working on another song called Perfect 10 on the Kids in a Ghost Town album, and try to remember what my boy room looked like. And then I was like, yeah, it was Van Halen, it was Mötley Crüe, it was like Harley Davidson, and it was Samantha Fox. And Samantha Fox, that would be the perfect kind of duet partner. So when I said to the guys, like, what do you think about that? And they said, yeah, that's going to be cool, but I think it's going to be tough. But I'm like, if someone done it before, for me, it's like, yeah, how hard can it be? So I just Googled her name, management, ended up with this Finnish guy who like represented her in Finland, got the number and the email to her manager, wrote to him and said like, we're, a bunch of guys from Sweden and we would like to do this and that. And he said like, yeah, but do you have a song? Send the song over because it was finished. And he played it to her and she came back to me within 6-7 hours. I love the song. Let's do it. And then we had this idea of the video where we kind of two has-beens living in this big house and trying to figure out how to cope with life after the 80s, basically. So that's the story. But it was we had a great time, and it was, as you say, quite amazing to get her over here and to record the video.
Kind of living out a boyhood dream there.
Yes. She was on my walls as well, and I guess that goes for the rest of the guys in the band.
Absolutely. On May 11th, Nestor opened up for Europe. Europe, a pretty big band over there in Sweden. So how was the experience?
That was great. We played with them before quite a few times, even though it was summer festivals and stuff. But it was great. This time around, we were supporting them for another 2 or 3 gigs, I think. So now it's great. It's kind of because we grew up with these guys and with their music, and it's kind of strange when Dionne, the guitarist, came up to me and said, "Hey, can I take a selfie with you? My wife is a big fan," and that's kind of strange. Where, yeah, shouldn't be the way around. But it's been great. They're super nice guys, and we know them a little bit from before as we toured with them last summer. So it's great.
You guys have some festivals coming up throughout the summer. You got Sweden Rock Fest, Rock Imperium, Summer Breeze. You got a bunch of others on the list there. Is there any particular one that you're looking forward to based on your past experiences there?
Well, we have our own festival in our little hometown called NESTOR Fest, and that is it's been sold out 2 years in a row, and it looks like it's going to be sold out this year as well. And I have to say, that is the highlight. We grew up in the city as teenagers, and then I moved when I was 20, and coming back, meeting these guys that used to be a part of our music back in 89, 90s, and be able to stand there in front of them and scream like, "Falköping, are we still your sons?" And they go, "Yeah." That's of course is super nice. So that is the highlight. Even though Sweden Rock, 20,000 people, it's going to be great as well.
So how did NESTOR Fest come to be in the first place?
Well, it was quite easy. We were doing a lot of shows and just realized that we didn't have a show that was located close to our hometown. There was nothing really going on in this area. So we said that maybe we should just do one of the, by the end of summer, do a big show in our hometown and talk to some, guys here in the city that still are kind of active when it comes to music and restaurants and pubs and all that. And we said, like, we want to do this. And they said, like, yeah, wouldn't it be cool to add, a little bit of bars and some kind of food trucks and stuff. And all of a sudden it was like, and the weather this first year was amazing, which sold out like in a couple of days. So then we kind of called it NESTOR Fest. And for some reason, there was a lot of people, are you doing it next year? And last year we did it again. And we did it 2 days festival with, we did like a synth versus hard rock with the bands like Alphaville and Nick Kershaw and stuff like that, 80s bands. And of course, Nestor and a couple of other bands. And it was a success. So then we felt like, let's keep on doing this. People seem to like it, and we for sure like it. So, yeah, that was the idea, and a little bit of lucky fluke, I think. But it's great.
So this year it's going to be August 9th and 10th. You're going to play both nights. It's going to be different sets both nights.
No, we're just playing the 10th. We have like Night Flight Orchestra and Hardcore Superstar. The first night, and the second night we got an old band called Nestor and the Gems and another band. So it's like 3 bands per night.
Okay.
So
After that, in the fall, October, November, you're doing the Teenage Rebel tour. You're headlining with Velveteen Queen, mainly through Germany. Are there plans to go beyond the German tour?
yeah, we already, I think it's not out yet, but we're doing Finland, Norway, and Denmark as well, and Sweden. So it's Scandinavia and Germany, Austria, Switzerland. But I heard the other day that we probably do some shows in Poland as well, and Italy's quite close. We might do that. Spain is not too far. We're gonna probably extend that tour with a couple of weeks, I guess.
What are the chances of Nestor in the USA? I know there's a lot of costs with getting a band from Sweden over into the US, and it might not be cost effective.
No, but we love to go there. We've done the Monsters of Rock cruise twice, even though it's not really America. But you know, we kind of started off in Miami and then went through the Bahamas. We would love to come to the US, and I think our music, it's like, as you know, of course, it's such a big country, and you have like so much like places for this kind of music, which is kind of rare in Scandinavia. So we'd love to come. We're just going to make sure that we've been talking a bit with Europe, because they've been there quite a few times, and that might be a match. If they're going, we might be able to come with them. But we'll see. We'll see. But we'd love to. We'd love to.
With just 2 albums under your belt, you've managed to score some great opening slots with bands like Kiss and Def Leppard and Alice Cooper. Out of those opening slots, what's kind of a show that stands out in your mind as being like, holy shit?
I have to say Kiss. You know, Kiss is and all of us, they're one of the biggest inspirations, especially the 80s albums with Kiss. So just being there, meeting up with Paul and Gene, you know, after the show, because Paul has been such a big part, especially Paul has been such a big part of my teenage years when I, you know, listened to all these albums, and he was like singing there in my boy room kind of. So it felt like I know these guys, which I don't, but that was crazy. And also it was crazy out of another aspect, and that was that the audience they really liked us. There was like almost a full arena when we played like a couple of hours before. So that was amazing, I have to say.
Now, I just mentioned that you only had 2 albums under your belt, and you mentioned earlier that you're around 50 years old, but Nestor actually existed back in 1989, and you were a completely different band. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that Nestor?
Well, I think that Nestor, it's the same guys, which is kind of cool. So we haven't changed anyone, or the same members, but I think we had the same references, ambitions then as we have now. The only thing was that we weren't that good. So we released 2 EPs, you know, never really unofficially released 2 EPs, and the second one of them is not too bad, but it sounds really crappy. Now, it was a crappy band, but the same kind of band in that sense that we had the same ambitions, and yeah, and then kind of we actually got a record deal back in the day as well, and we really fought hard for a couple of years, but then like 95, 96, it was life kind of came in between, girlfriends, education, and we never really said that we took a break, but it's like sand running through your fingers. It just, you know, and then took some time to get back together.
What brought you guys all back together? Your life was in order, and now was the time.
Now was the time. Now I live in Spain nowadays, and we were in confinement during the pandemic, and I was sitting there playing the piano, and my wife said I was coming back to, you know, I want to know what love is, or is this love that I'm feeling? It was a lot of 80s songs, and then she said, like, you're only playing 80s songs, and then I got this idea that what if we could get into a time machine, go back to 1989 and make that album that we didn't have the skills or possibilities to make then, now. And I called the guitar player up and said, what do you think about this? And he's like, it's a great idea. Let's call the guys in the band. And I called them up and said, like, should we put the band together? And the bass player said, like, what took you so long? So almost 30 years. Kind of crazy.
Well, before I let you go, I want to know what inspired the band's name, Nestor.
I wish that I had a great story for you, but the thing was that here in Europe, I think you might heard of him, but there's a comic book called Tintin. Tintin is like a, from Holland, kind of political thing. It was huge in the 80s. He's like a detective of some kind. And he had a friend called Captain Haddock, and his butler was named Nestor. There you have it. Not a great story, but that's how it is. Yeah.
Well, that's all I got for you today, Tobias. The new Nestor album is Teenage Rebel. It's out now. You guys are heading out onto the festival circuit, and I wish you the best of luck with everything, and thanks for talking to KNAC.com today.
Thank you, George. It's been a pleasure, and thank you for taking the time.